Going over IRS Form 4422, application for certificate discharging property subject to estate tax lien. So this tax form specifically is for executors of estates who where the estate is subject to an estate tax calculation. So for tax year 2023, for single individuals, that's somewhere north of 12 point, rounding some decimals here, I believe $93 million. So the vast majority of estates will not have to worry about any estate tax liability or even filing a tax return, IRS Form 706 on behalf of an estate. However, if this does happen, there are a couple of differences between a regular federal tax lien and an estate tax lien. So first of all, a federal tax lien would be in public record. You can actually find that in the public notices. You can have specific property subject to a federal tax lien, whereas an estate tax lien applies to the entire estate. And then this Form 4422 would be an application to discharge specific property under that lien. So for example, if the executor was looking to liquidate some real estate so that they could pay off the tax lien, then they would use this form in order to actually have the IRS authorize the discharge of that specific piece of property from under the tax lien. Then once that property goes through closing, the IRS would expect some payment, if not total payment, of the outstanding tax liability. So you may need to file other forms along with this. We'll put links to the different forms in the show notes, but you could possibly be expected to file IRS Form 14135, which is the application for discharge of property from a federal tax lien, if it happens to be also under federal tax lien. You may need to file Form 706 if you're the executor of the estate. You may need to file IRS Form 8821, which is the tax information authorization form, and that simply allows the IRS to share information or directly contact individuals for the purpose of determining whether or not they should approve the discharge application. So having that completed Form 8821 on file allows the IRS to go ahead and work things out with other creditors should they need to. So this is a relatively straightforward form. We're going to go through this step by step. In this situation, our hero John Doe unfortunately died, so we're completing this on behalf of his estate. We've got his name, social, date of death up here in the top row. He was living at his home in Anytown, Texas, and we've got the employer identification number of his estate. So under Internal Revenue Code 6325, that's the application for discharging property that might be subject to the tax lien. So you're basically requesting, you're acknowledging the subject property as it's either about to be covered in Form 706 if you've not filed it yet, or if it was already filed, then you would be reporting basically the values that you already reported. So in this case, we did file this estate tax return within 9 months of John Doe's death. We filed it later in 2022, and at that time we paid $50,000 just because we thought that he might owe some estate tax. So when we calculated the value of his gross estate, we came up with $13.5 million as the total value of his gross estate, minus $500,000 of deductions, means that his taxable estate is somewhere around $13 million. So the if you are selling property, transferring it, or mortgaging it, then you would have to complete one or more of the following blocks. So in section A, we're talking about the election to value certain farm and business real property as a closely held business. The Internal Revenue Code section 2032A allows that to happen in certain instances of closely held businesses. In section B, we are indicating whether or not we will be requesting to defer payment of estate taxes. So we are requesting that, or we did request that, and then the payment was deferred based on one of three different sections of the tax code. So section 6161 is simply the coverall part of the code that allows the Treasury Secretary broad discretion when granting tax relief in the form of an extension to pay. 6163 is with respect to the extension of time for a payment of estate tax on the value of a reversionary or remainder interest in the property. So the Treasury Secretary can postpone payment for up to 6 months after the termination. And then after that, the federal government can grant an extension of up to 3 additional years. And then finally, section 6166, this is an extension of time for payment of the estate tax, where the estate consists largely of an interest in a closely held business. So this would be kind of the allowance for family members to figure out a way to make installment payments instead of having to pay everything in a lump sum. So we went with the kind of the broader caveat, and we did pay certain amount of money when we filed IRS Form 4768, which was the extension of time. So we paid $10,000. That's what it would look like. But that doesn't jive with what we actually paid with our tax returns. So I just realized this in the example. So we filed IRS Form 706 within 9 months. We paid $50,000. So we wouldn't be requesting an extension of being able to pay the taxes. So that would be blocks that we filled out, B and C. If we did request an extension for filing the estate tax return and paying the taxes. So we did not request that. What we just covered in B and C would look is kind of an example of what it would look like if we did. So if you didn't file your Form 706 but you filed an extension, you would complete B, you would say yes, then you would indicate which code section, either 6161, 6163, or 6166, that you actually cited as the reference to request that deferral. But since we're selling this, we're going to go ahead and name the person that we sold the property to. So paid $1 million to buy this property. We now have cash to be able to pay whatever the estate tax outstanding would be. So you would sign this as the executor. If you had an attorney that was preparing this, then your attorney would sign below your signature. And then you would indicate name and address of the applicant, which let's just say was John's sister Mary, and she lived in the town next door called Anywhere, and then you would put the relationship of the applicant to the estate. So we'll say that Jane Doe or Mary Doe is the executor, and then you would enter her phone number, the phone number of her attorney, and then the physical address. So whatever the 321 and then whatever the title or escrow company is being used for the settlement. So let's go over a couple of things at the bottom of this form because they're important notes to know. So if you have property in the gross estate that you're trying to sell, the executor must request a discharge of the specific property from the estate tax lien. You would need to submit the application to the IRS at least 45 days before the transaction date. Most likely, if you're selling with a real estate agent, and they understand your tax situation, then the title or the escrow company is probably going to be requesting that this gets completed well in advance. So, I mean, this is a basic part of underwriting for loans, for banks. This is probably something that would come up before closing, and it would be up to the bank, the estate agent, the escrow company, and the buyer and the seller to kind of work out allowing this process to complete as part of the closing requirements. So you may need to send some documentation, specifically your completed estate tax return, maybe your extension. So if you filed IRS Form 4768, if you had a copy of the will, the sales contract, like all of these documents that are being requested, the title report, the appraisal, like this is all information that will help the IRS make a determination in your favor. And again, you're in a position where you need to sell a piece of real estate or other property to generate cash to pay taxes that the IRS wants you to pay. So everyone's on the same side of the table here, and providing all of this documentation when you complete the Form 4422 just helps ensure that everyone's able to move forward together. So completed Form 8821, that's the tax information authorization form. Contact information for the closing attorney. They may come back with additional requests for information to, if they need more information to complete that review. There is an address on the back of the form that you should mail the completed form to and all the supporting documents. So the Advisory Estate Tax Lien Group in San Jose, California, and you would send your form there for the review. So that's all we have for this video. You can take a look at the step-by-step guidance that we put out in our article covering IRS Form 4422. Take a look at the link in the show notes or simply go to our website, teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Form 4422 and our article should appear. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. And if you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our channel. I'll have links to all of the different forms, tutorials, and articles that we've written. So if you have any questions about any of these forms, please don't hesitate to put questions in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.